pick today, Miff, in picks and bans, you think, or probably not?
I would say probably not, but not improbable. You know what I mean? Like, it could happen.
I think probably not, and then saying not improbable are two opposite things.
Uh-huh.
Improbable means
it is likely not to happen.
Right, so you said likely not, but it's not likely to happen.
Yeah. There you go.
Do you know what improbable means?
Do you know what grind set means? Shut up, Dave.
I sure don't. I know. That's on me. I apologize. I'm harshing on you for absolutely.
My vibe.
You got all in my head about grind set, and I feel like I have to defend myself now. Let's jump into picks and bans here, though. The Circuit taken away first and foremost by the Tartarus Titans, and the Tiamat off the table. And this is such an interesting team to ban against. I feel like the only Warriors are, because you have to look at things like the Hera. You have to look at weird niche picks for Cycle and Spin later on in the draft. So maybe it's all about, let's get what we would really hate to play against out first and foremost, and then just hope we have a game plan against something like the Hera, something like a set ADC if it ends up coming up.
So it is Circuit Capri removed by the Tartarus Titans. Oni Warriors removed the Tiamat, and I think it's not just the Hera you have to be worried about. It used to be the conversation of, all right, Morgan Le Fay, Tiamat, those are the two. Now we've got Persephone in the mix as well. So there are a lot of priority mages still available out there. I mean, Odin has been a very contested pick here at the SPL level. He's still available. Gilgamesh still out there as well. Yamoja has not been banned out as of yet. Ymir has been a very strong pick for both supports in this game. There's a fair deal of targeted bans already. That leaves a lot on the table.
This is a tough weekend for the Tartarus Titans if we're kind of zooming out for a moment. They've had to play the Leviathans and the Bolts in their last 4 games. Beat the Bolts, lost to the Leviathans. They have the Oni Warriors today, and then the Jade Dragons later on this week, and that's on Sunday. So not an easy stretch for the Titans by any means. That's why, if you're looking at seeding, so important to get a win over the Oni Warriors today, because you got a now seemingly angry Dragons team coming out of the gates for you on Sunday. First pick, though, Odin. Odin has been receiving a lot of ban pressure. Not in this set, though. Artemis takes his place, and Odin will be the first overall pick.
It just changes how you have to fundamentally approach the game when there's a god like Odin or like Yamoja on the team or the enemy team. It's, do I need a Phantom? When am I going to buy the Phantom? Who's buying the Phantom? Do we want to play around it? Is a Wheelish a viable counter pick here? How are we going to deal with it? We need to win the fight before the team fight starts. We can't really be the ones initiating because Ring of Spears is a phenomenal disengage tool as well. It all just really shifts up how you approach these neutral objectives in particular. So I'm excited to see how the Oni Warriors respond to this pick, and Cerberus in that first slot does make sense, but I think that Cerberus could have waited a little bit later in the draft. It's very likely that this Odin is headed to the Soul Lane. We don't see Cerberus inside of support too often anymore. That's more of a Season 7 special, but maybe the Oni Warriors concerned that that flex potential is there. Do want to confirm that god for themselves.
I think that's a pretty indicative stat of how well Cerberus is doing, is the fact that it's what, a 64% win rate is what I just saw, which is a big number. And it's not like there's only been 2 or 3 games played. Cerberus has played 28 games so far in Phase 2 of the SPL and has won 64% of them. So there's a large data pool, and a lot of them have been wins for Cerberus. Heimdall then for Vote. That's been a popular pick for Vote on the other side. I think Odin does make sense for Benji here. Last time we saw Odin for Benji, it was against the Valkyries in their last set. He went 1-0-8. And I think Benji's been on a bit of a tear here recently, even though they lost back-to-back games against the Leviathans. Benji went 0-4 in one of those games. In the other 5 of the last 6 games that Benji has played, he has died 0 or 1 times in all of those games. So
it's not a lot.
Benji on that is not a lot at all. So Benji on something like the Odin, I think probably is a bit of confidence here for Titans players or fans. Let's catch back up though. Osiris, another very popular pick that we've seen here recently, and then Raijin after what we saw in set number 1. I think the Titans, through 3 picks, probably got exactly what they came for.
Yeah, we've got the Soul Lane on display, Odin, Osiris likely in the jungle, Raijin in mid. The Titans aren't really trying to shift up or hide too much what they're drafting here, so the Oni Warriors should have a pretty clear idea of what they're looking to ban out here. It could be either Hunters or it could be potentially supports, and it seems like Hunters going to be the ones that get their eyes on them a little bit earlier on. Rom removed from the table. I think that the Titans have essentially drafted themselves an incredibly strong front line, and already a god that we've seen have great success. I mean, the performance from Big Man Tings on this Raijin inside of that last set shows that, all right, you get a strong, tanky front line in front of him. Sometimes Raijin can change these games all on his own. Meanwhile, the Oni Warriors have got a very interesting draft. Heimdall is locked in, incredibly safe. You can leave him alone on an island.
Yep.
Cerberus for engage, and Nike, who I think there is essentially two gods in one. You can go for the double HP bar, I'm going to be a tank frontliner build, or you can have, as Kabam so eloquently coined, the tactical nuke Nike, where you go for the blink in with hidden dagger and a heart seeker, and you just pop your ult and pray that somebody dies around you. And I think it could be that strategy, as Zhang Kui is locked in as well. These guys are W king.
Yeah, so we've mentioned players on both teams that have kind of eclectic god pools. Dardas takes a couple of bans, Morgan and Hera, and then on the other side, Cyclone Spin's going to have to play something different because it's no Ram, no Izanami, no Artemis, no Heimdall. Chernobog has usually been the fallback for Cyclone Spin. But let's talk about Dardas here. Dardas doesn't get to play one of the standard mid laners that we normally see him play. So instead, for the 9th time this phase, Zhang Kui will come out. And I think important that you mentioned kind of W key mentality, because it feels like when we've seen Zhang Kui, the team around him is so important as far as whether or not he has success. Do you think now with an RDO rounding out the draft, there's a team built around Zhang Kui that he can succeed in?
Yeah, I see 4 gods that are probably going to get a little pet rock and drop a W key.
Split 3 future. Right now, this is purely an instance of establishing dominance.
And now with Layers joining their team for this week, it was Layers, and then for a week it was Sino, and now they're back to Layers, who's been kind of adapting more towards this warrior-style jungle that we've been seeing throughout all of the phase. We saw Sino going a lot more towards the assassin role. How does Layers kind of bringing his god pool back in here really help these Titans out in this early game?
I think it's more so just trying to complement Paul and the Raijin potential here, because it's not a surprise, or a secret really I should say, that Raijin does damage. The thing is, being able to deal that damage is going to depend purely upon what is cleared out in front of him first, and I think that Osiris certainly one of the more difficult junglers to escape from. Cuvo already in a spot of trouble here, as Layers won't manage to connect just yet for an early first blood. But imagine that Dardas, Cuvo, that initial level 2 skirmish is not the only one they're going to have to face. I could see Paul looking to get more aggressive on this Raijin.
Nika might be in danger. Benji and Layers both dunk on top of him, and they're going to be pulled away immediately. Layers is still going for the kill, gets the stun under the tower, and First Blood goes for the Tartarus Titans, but it may be too little too late for Layers as he gets stuck inside of his own team's cage with nowhere to run. Cuvo Fred able to turn it around and make it a 1-for-1.
A nice responsive trade back, but damage has already been done. Layers still gets that First Blood bounty, so still having a slight edge over Cuvo Fred on that one, and Cuvo could be in some trouble if he chooses to stick around much longer, but Benji, he's not going to follow suit with Layers. No reason to really tower dive that Nike's ultimate, because the slow proc, I think, is the most valuable part behind it, because I think as far as follow-up and damage is concerned, there's plenty between the rest of his team. He just needs a way to actually keep Tartarus Titans locked down. Purple buff Inve now getting looked at. Nilma putting some heavy deeps into Cyclone Aurora, but it's a walk away for the time being. No kills just yet.
That Aurora can't dash away. It's able to put a nice chunk of damage in response back to the Tartarus Titans. It did still manage to secure that purple buff. It seems the Cyclone does have that around his waist, and well, may not be the same situation for Cuvo Fred. Ult from Cyclone and from Paul, trying to take down one, but Dardas is so tanky right now. Still alive in the midst of the fight, but Paul will put him down with a percussive storm, making sure to drop his opponent.
And Cuvo, believe it or not, he actually ulted throughout that engagement. The shield was just shredded so fast, and Layers on the escape, but can't get away from the range in time, and Cuvo, one more time, punishing Layers. But again, after having already been costed, elsewhere, choose to follow up on it. Don't think that he felt as though there were any ideal targets for him to go flying towards, but the damage has certainly been done. Oni Warriors already had that purple buff timer because of their last attempt towards an invade, but the ward on top of now confirming that timer is solid.
Paul stopped immediately out of his percussive storm. He gets crippled by a Neil, so he has to use the ultimate instead of a relic, just trying to return some fire, but that's a big ult taken away from the mid laner. Save for Paul, he does hold on to the relics, but now without that ultimate, they lose on a lot of damage for our next fight.
Seems to be the Benji show and a half, and I think the Oni Warriors, it might be in their best interest to continue trying to force pressure on that duo side of the map, because anything to take away the focus from that solo lane might be the best bet, but Benji, he's already making the rotation. This Gold Fury, Titans want it.
Gold Fury started up by the Titans. The Warriors have responded by sending 2 here. Meanwhile, Nika is finally making his rotation, but they pull off the Fury immediately as they've caught Neil inside the cage, and he's already down to half health and taken away. No, he's not quite yet. He just manages to squeak by, but Layers will use the Lord of the Afterlife to take him down. Now it's a 4v5, and Nika's the one in danger. Benji charging forward and forces the leap from Nika back under the T1.
Too much expended there to let Neilmon get away. Lord of the Afterlife in exchange for that bear's life could be the difference maker. Tartarus Titans still have about 10 seconds, and that's not counting the other 10 seconds that Neil will have to spend getting out of pace back to this objective. Gold Fury down to 30% HP. Benji doing his best to zone.
Gets one stun. Cubo Fred tries to go for the steal, but unsuccessful. It's a double leap in from the Warriors. They found at least one grabbing Layers, but Cubo is low. Paul on the Taiko drums finds 2 with a big double kill for the mid laner. Nika may be the one in danger now as Paul leaps in and picks up his kill. That's a third one on the board, or just a 2 for it, as it's a 2-for-2 trade between the teams.
Seems as though the Oni Warriors have forgotten
Maybe
about
more?
the cooldown on this Horizon. Darda is now in some trouble. Purification gets used, but Paul blown up by the Jean-Qui damage. Benji gonna leap in overhead. A nice steal on the health bar from Benji. Gonna revive Dardas just a little bit further there, and the disengagement will finally begin between these two teams. Paul not really recognizing how low that mana bar truly was, and definitely wasn't expecting that first damage from Dardas.
Neil may have got baited out, but it's just the 2 tanks. There's not enough damage to kill him, I say that, but Cyclone's back up with an ultimate looking to take down Neil. Neil's going to get rooted in place by Aurora. Benji locking him down with the spears, and Cyclone just peppering autos into him until finally the bear falls.
A lot of attack speed, but only a little bit of power currently for Cyclone until he finishes off what will likely be the chin size.
Mid lane, and a 700 gold lead just over Dardes.
And referencing that last little skirmish at the Gold Fury, I think it's important to know Layers was definitely the target focus there for the Oni Warriors. Hold that thought though, because Nika going to be aggressive one more time, Stingy and Torment, but it's inside the Odin cage, and his HP is not looking good.
Nika will not make it out of this skirmish. Yet again, that Odin cage coming in huge for Benji, able to get another pick with it. Seems every cage he has dropped down has been successful in picking up another kill with it. That's his 6th kill that he's been a part of, 1 kill number for himself and 5 assists on the tail end of it. This Odin pick, we're starting to see why it's been top banned so many times.
Yep, Benji has just had so much control, a true facilitator of the map right now. Everywhere he goes, Tartarus Titans willing to follow, and why not? When he's got such great lockdown capability here, it seems as though the Tartarus Titans, they're not going to waste any more time. 4-man grouping just to seize this mid lane. They don't need Cyclone spin, they've got the rest of them.
Darda's going to dive in with the blink, but he's already used the relic now, so he doesn't have another form of initiation. Doesn't use the ultimate, just tries to scare away the Titans from taking the tier 1. They're successful in pushing them away.
The enemy education, but I like this so far though from these two hunters. I think 2 different builds that have their designated purposes. Vote looking to be an objective machine, and keep in mind does still have that 10% penetration, but the Heimdall basics in general chunky enough, and I don't think that the pen will be too sorely missed.
Benji blinks in the back, finds 1 in the cage and 2 trapped on the outskirts of it. Dardas does manage to break free, but it's Neil diving the backline looking for Paul and Cyclone, but he's going to be returned fire with too much damage to handle. Nika finds a couple with the ultimate, but they all use their beads immediately. Paul under fire, Dardas falls down. Cyclone with the credit for the kill. Now Cyclone hiding in the wall, waiting for an opportunity to strike, but he comes out at a bad time, and Nika puts him down, still looking for Paul as he didn't go back to base, but a huge gem Brock. Make sure that he gets nice and healthy. Now it's Neil and Nika who are both low, having to run, because look how strong in the health bars the rest of the Titans are.
In Layers, he tried to give chase to Cubo earlier on. Cubo just barely managing to squeak on out of there. Nika, though, don't think he'll be able to follow the safe storyline, trying to buy as much time as possible, but it is too little too late here for the Oni Warriors. And the comms there for the Tartarus Titans in terms of the shot calling for the target focus. That might have saved the day there for the Oni Warriors, but it's reasonable how chaotic that can get in the moment.
Warriors are having a hard time getting vote in these fights. You can see him sitting at the bottom end of the player charts, but we'll have to hold that for the moment. The Fire Giant is started up by the Titans. 3 on it instantly, and Cyclone Spin rotates in to get the remaining damage. Cubo wants to try and stop this, but the Fire Giant is burning down. The Tartarus Titans do manage to get it. Cubo goes into the backline, used the Sentinel of Zeus, And that health shield is keeping him healthy for the time being, but now that it is gone, he's already lost over half of his health and maybe even more as Paul teams up with Benji to take him down. That's already one off the board for the Warriors.
And look at those pings coming out. Has to have been Cyclone's been like, guys,
Oh,
guys,
Neil.
we still have Neil Mall over here. They're
Neil.
destroying him. And Neil will get locked down inside of that Vicious Barrage, Crystallized Curses combination. The Hunter coming up big here, and that's the beauty of Living Nightmare, J-Mac. I was concerned the Tartarus Titans weren't going to have many options after the fact, and then completely forgot about the fact that Cyclone Spin, he's got a free taxi ride to wherever on the minimap. Oni Warriors knew that Tartarus Titans were pulling that Fire Giant. They had to respond in kind, but they weren't all grouped up to actually punish Cyclone
moly.
Spin as he came rampaging through there towards anyone. That becomes problematic at this level of play, and right now, Oni Warriors, I think everything's going to be so dependent on Nika and Cubo to find that perfect engagement, but how perfect can it really be when you've got Benji running around as Odin?
Titans start setting up their tent in the dual lane, looking to siege the Phoenix. Meanwhile, Benji and Layers will push up the minions towards mid so they can have a secondary place to strike, should this left side Phoenix be too much for them to handle. Aurora walking forward has Paul and Cyclone by his side. Meanwhile, the Oni Warriors are splitting themselves up in an attempt for this defense. You see 1-1 trying to deal with Benji and Layers here. Neil's the one who rotates over to try and help Cubo. But this 3v3 for the Titans, they can shred this Phoenix down very quickly. Cyclone picks up an Executioner, and Nika picks up Paul, gets the beads instantly from him, and he takes over half of his health just from the combo of Paul. Neil blinks in, gets a stun, forces the Titan go drums up instantly. Paul has to use his Aegis to try and get away. He manages the Thunder Crash away from Dardas, and now Aurora's caught in the middle of 4.
But keep in mind what's been happening in the mid lane. The Tartarus Titans, they said, fine, you can have the team fight. We'll take the Titan, we'll take the Phoenix. And just like that, it is over.
Tartarus Titans with a sneaky little play, distracting the Oni Warriors.
Trying to utilize that W key composition. They were trying to make sure this Zhonghui was able to get involved, and really he wasn't, man. This Odin that you're seeing on the screen right now, Benji, he kind of made sure that he wasn't able to. That cage was locking down entire jungle lanes inside of these team fights, and then from there, what does Dardas do? He just kind of looks on from the back lines like, hey guys, I'll win this team fight if I can get in there, but I simply cannot. On display right here, he's just stuck.
Yep. It's the jump in from Kivo Fred. Benji says, all right, I'm going to send Fred in alone. And then this massive Odin cage is going to keep him at bay. And now it's a continued trend that this Raijin is starting to separate, I think, Myth from some individual mid laners here in the league to now just a pick that needs to be respected in general. Because, you know, we discussed it on Waiting Room. It was a lot of Tiamat, a lot of Morgan Le Fay, and then Raijin kind of comes up as that next pick. I still think pretty true in the case of Tiamat. If Tiamat is left available, you got to pick that. But Raijin now in just back-to-back sets has felt near unkillable. So hard to dive, you know, natural CC immunity, Thunder Crash in or out, then the ability to do big range damage with the Taiko drum. So that's something maybe the Oni Warriors now have to consider, right? If you're not going to pick it, maybe you need to take it away. The Oni Warriors, those are the types of things. You're in the first pick slot. You can consider taking away the Raijin, but you're also in the first pick slot. Do you want to commit first pick onto a pick like that? You know, it's a tough world right now where so many of the Titans are playing well enough, at least after game 1, that you have to pick and choose where those first 3 bans go. And I don't know if there's a clear and easy answer here.
No, it's so difficult. I mean, I'm going to keep flexing it, but I hung out with Kabam recently, and he said to me, I think the Tartarus Titans
last night?
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, I hung out before that, though.
Got it, okay. I wasn't there for the pre-hang.
No, we had to get whatever, dude. Right. Anyway, so he said to me the Tartarus Titans are a team that he thinks is going to be one of the largest threats in the league once they've really got their stuff together. Once they get it all bundled up and in one spot, these guys are really going to step up. And I think having now an actual jungler in your jungle and a consistent team composition, being that they're not doing this musical chairs thing with Sino and Layers anymore, now's the time that they're really going to start gearing up for Worlds. And every single week, we are going to see marked improvement on this squad. I mean, already, since the mass exodus of Scary D, this team has had large strides already. I think it's only going to get better from here.
Do you think that originally the Kings were a dark horse team to win Worlds? And I think they're just good enough now that they're no longer dark horse.
No, I get to say it still, though, right?
No, of course.
Okay.
You're still correct in that.
Sick.
Do you think this Titans team could be a dark horse? Let's not talk about Worlds. Let's talk about Phase 2 playoffs. They're in. We don't know what exactly their seeding is going to be. Do you think they're a dark horse team to win Phase 2 playoffs?
I think not for playoffs. I would say they are a dark horse in that if they do win, they were a dark horse,
Right.
but I think that it's very unlikely that they win playoffs. I would say they are more likely to win Worlds than they would be to win playoffs.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, fair enough. I just wanted to get a heat check on where you stand on the Titans, and I think it's a pretty fair assessment of where this team is at the moment. All right, so we wondered, how would the Oni Warriors choose to pick and ban? The answer is, let's take away a lot of Paul's pick here. Hell goes by the wayside. Raijin does as well. That's going to leave Tiamat open for that first pick, as well as the Emoja taken away from Aurora. So Tiamat first and foremost overall. I think that makes some sense here. What was it? That was the top tier in your tier list. So
She's
Oni
the
Warriors
only
have to
one
have it.
that I think you can pick and not think about your composition at all. She's
Got it.
plug and play through and through. Tiamat brings a ton of max range damage. She can kind of flex into that frontline role once she gets into that quadrupedal stance. She brings great map presence. Her objective secure maybe a little bit where she lacks. She doesn't have that same amount of just raw burst damage. She doesn't have that same like massive number. She's not putting out like an 800 damage ability like some of these other mages, but getting to the objective, the opportunity to fight for it, that's where Tiamat really thrives.
I wonder what the Oni Warriors want to do here with their last two picks, because there's an Artemis already off the table. Rom is gone as well. Heimdall has been a popular option for vote here. But if you don't pick a Hunter, that's a pretty easy target for the Titans here in bands 4 and 5. And so this is really going to show, I think, maybe not confidence, that's not the right word, but the pressure that this Oni Warriors team feels in getting vote onto one of his preferred picks. And there is some pressure there, and so Izanami will end up being the pick alongside the Khepri. And so a decent top 3 here for the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, they've got great fight potential. I mean, if Tiamat is your win condition, Khepri is a great way to keep her alive inside of these engagements, especially considering the Titans have already shown a little bit of their dive potential now with Osiris being locked in. Morgan, interesting selection this early on in the draft, does have, again, decent one-shot potential, so Izanami and Tiamat can have to keep their heads about them and make sure that they're communicating well with this Khepri so that Scarab's blessing will ring true. I think that both teams come away with a very strong initial 3 here, but if I had to favor one, it's the one with the best in slot mage and pretty annoying Guardian. And Oni Warriors, I think, have gotten themselves a pretty good one.
And Izanami's got one of the best stims in the game as well as far as Hunter goes.
We think like second or third best.
Second?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, consult the grind council and let me know what.
That's on a 7-day cooldown, man. They block my number.
They only convene every once in a while. It's like the Brethren Court in Pirates. You gotta bring your pieces of 8 or whatever to get the grind court back together. I'm loving this, Smith. This is a great bit that we've put together, regardless of what.
I'm glad we like it because I'm sure chat hates it.
Yeah, I'm sure they despise it, but it doesn't matter because you and I love it. Into the second wave of bans we go. Kabrakan off the table. Titans say no thank you to that one. And then Terra will be an Aurora-centric ban here. And I think, the Morgan, an interesting pick, not in a bad way, but makes some sense when you consider the conversation we had around vote. And likely Paul is going to take some bans here in the last 2 for the Oni Warriors if you don't pick a mid laner here, Titans. And so they went ahead and got Paul his pick. But maybe some solo lane-centric mindset here for the Titans, Myth, Kabrakan, and Guan Yu both off the table. So now it's Nika who's got to pick something a little bit different.
And we've seen Nika play some pretty eccentric gods in his own right.
Sure.
Right? He can go towards the Tsukiyomis. We've seen him touch the Sun Wukongs, things along those lines. So I think banning out Nika is a valiant effort that you could make, but maybe easier said than done. Guardians seem to be the flavor of the week right now for the solo lane, and that's why we see Kabrakan removed from the table in the second phase here by the Tartarus Titans. But I mean, Nika's got his entire god pool ahead of him, and as I hear J-Mac whispering from the Vine, Cerberus maybe still an option.
Could be. Yeah, because look, I mean, unless this Osiris is going solo lane, Benji also needs a pick here. So both solo laners still need a pick. And so nothing out of the ordinary there as far as bans go. Terra and Artie are going to be the final 2 bans for the Oni Warriors. And so now the Tartarus Titans, they have a lot of flexibility as far as what they want to look at with one of their final picks here. So they still need support. They still need solo lane. And how can we forget about Ares here? Aurora's your support, and Ares is a very strong pick.
I mean, I think we could pretty easily forget about Ares because it's generally just Aurora running this god consistently, right? But maybe when talking about the Titans, you're right to bring it up. And I like it a lot into this draft already. That cripple on the chains can go upwards of like 12, 15 seconds if you space out the chains perfectly. Izanami going to struggle to survive against that. Khepri might be forced to use the Scare's Blessing on himself. Tiamat as well loses out on a lot of her utility when that leap is no longer available, as it acts as her stance switch as well. So Ares a very strong pickup here, and 2 gods on the Oni Warriors that don't have CC immunity inherently in the kits. The ultimates from both Khepri and Izanami, Dark Portal and Scare's Blessing respectively. Yeah, that doesn't help. No escape's going to pull you in. You're probably going to have to buy some beads.
Yeah, I think beads are going to be pretty important here for this Oni Warriors team. Tiamat maybe a little bit more flexible, but you're always going to get beads in Aegis anyway, unless, well, we had Giannis with Blink in SEC this morning. I don't know if we're going to see any of that
Good memory.
in this set. Whoa, did not expect that one here, Mifflin. We got a new look here at what I'm going to assume is the solo lane, and it's the Jormungandr for the first time, at least in Phase 2, and I believe Season 8 in general.
Yeah, he just got a really cool skin recently, so maybe we get to see that one. I'm pretty sure it's competitively banned, but if you do like that skin, you should buy it. Jormungandr is a god that when he was relevant inside the SPL, it was generally ducky.
Gets a little bit of additional power. Jim Akintako here with me, as well as Doug one more time, bring us game number 2 for this. But how you feel about this Jormungandr just kind of out of nowhere?
Well, given what happened in solo lane last game, I'm not going to say the Jormungandr is bad by any means. I don't think any pick is ever bad for the most part. He's got to dive very heavily with Cuvo, and there can't be any room for hesitation. I think that Jormungandr is also going to have a little bit more struggles after the first 5 levels in this solo lane, because Osiris definitely known for being a lane bully.
Everybody for the last one, is he going to use it as an escape option? But also more importantly, is Paul going to be able to use that one for himself? Layers is in a bit of danger. Cuvo and Tartarus are just doing too much damage to him. He will fall down. First blood goes the way of the Warriors.
And Cuvo still looking to keep the aggression going, even dashing into Paul, but without that Acorn Blast, won't be able to find a stun to utilize it against those Morrigan and pools. I think that if Nika is smart about his placement, I thought the Cyclone in some trouble here. Just roll away.
Takes quite a bit of poke, and Roar gets rooted in place, and that allows for Vote to continue throwing basic after basic against them, putting them both under the halfway mark. You do see builds similar to each other this time, both of them going for the cowl, where last time around we did see Vote go for the Death's Toll start. But immediately now the Titans will go towards the purple buff, seeing if they can secure that one for themselves. It looks like Neil was able to steal it away, gets a double root on both the Roar and Cyclone, and Vote continues to throw some bases, see if he can push him away, but they got their prize, purple buff, around the waist of the Warriors.
Yes, I just can assume that that's exactly what Neilmaw is looking to do. Keep in mind that purple timer about to respawn, and Warren Cyclone still sitting at level 5, only Layers having that bat out of hell to expend, and this might just favor the Oni Warriors yet again.
Dark Portal expended by Vote just to try and put some further poke. Cuvo Fred going for an invade here. Layers is waiting to try and do something, but he's unsuccessful in saving the purple buff. And all the Warriors are going to go for a ride out of here. Cuvo Fred jumps on the tree. Neil Ma in danger as Layers and Cyclone continue to deal damage, but using that revive with the Scare's Blessing gives him that extra movement speed and the cleanse to break from the slow and get back to safety.
But 3 ultimates expended just to run away from a lone purple buff invade. It's impressive that the Oni Warriors were still able to confirm their red buff. On the other hand, purple buff now going to be looked at by the Titans. They still have ultimates in tow, and it will be a successful strip away, although won't be a total freebie collapse onto Neilmon. There's a decent chance that he would have died without expending that Scare's Blessing in advance. So it is obvious that there's definitely some early to mid-game threat here from the Titans, as now Neilmon, Vote, they still want to try and invade this purple buff. Paul's lurking, but could be trouble off the rotation coming out of Layers, because Dardes and Cuvo, they're poised to respond.
We saw this the last time that the Warriors played. It was just constant invades. Previously for them, it was trying to steal the red buff away on cooldown, but now doing the same thing with purple buff. And it's always a case of, you get one, that's all cool, but how much more are you going to get from there? So far, they've gotten 2 purple buffs and looking for another one. Nika trying to secure his blue buff away from Benji, and it looks like he was successful in doing so. And On the flip side, the Warriors were successful in stealing the purple buff away, but Layers again with the rotation blinks over immediately and gets the revive out of Neil so early in the fight. That's going to be a huge ult expended from the Warriors. Neil still stepping forward, has his beads available, but he's going to need more than just beads to get away from Aurora. The damage from him and Layers is just too much. Even Vote's taking too much damage. Aurora goes for the ultimate to try and pull Vote in. It's not enough damage to kill him, and in comes Cubo Fred from the Cosmos, picks up one, but he's going to trade out his life instantly. Now Paul has turned his sights towards Dardes, but Nika has rotated back to the side of the map, uses the teleport to try and get in the midst.
Don't think anybody from the Tartarus Titans was expecting a party from the solo lane this early on. Layers trying to be sneaky with a red buff in vain, but will be unsuccessful.
A few moments later.
Relatively exposed, I would say, against the damage that the Tartarus Titans have between their mid jungle. Also liking this Dumort from Paul.
Aurora gets plucked by Neil, immediately eats a chain for his trouble, make that 2 chains, but it's going to be the Cyclone coming out of Dardes just to push the team away. And again, the Warriors start setting up for this purple buff. It's like we're on a repeat. Somebody stuck the record on loop, and now we're stuck in this timeline for it. But while they're doing that, Nika's bullying Benji away. That Jade Emperor's crown reducing Benji's power to basically nothing. Aurora gonna get a pull back against Neil because his beads were down. Layers puts the damage in, and Neil down to half health. The chains and the flames are just too much damage. Neil still has the res if need be. He will use it. It will pop instantly, but he's gonna be met by 2 as soon as he gets away. Layers using the bat out of hell. Vote has nowhere to go, and Paul with the rotation takes down Neil. But Cubo in the sky looking for somebody. Instead, he's going to use it just to retreat as Layers healed up too much from that flood pool.
It wasn't just Neil under fire. Layers helping dismantle Vote in the dual lane as well. Cyclospin up inside the Ash Barrage just for good measure. Primordial Onslaught puts in some decent work from Dardes, but purple buff still being looked at by the Tartarus Titans. And 3 versus 1, the 3 tend to win out here almost every single time as Tartarus Titans, I believe they do clear that purple buff. They might have left 1 minion standing just so that the Oni Warriors have to wait even longer for the respawning of that buff.
For things to work on later down the road, Neil gets caught by a chain, eats a little bit of fire damage as well, and Cuvo Fred going for a red buff invade. So they've moved their sights away from the far left. It's okay, far left's not working. Let's move it a little bit closer to mid lane. They steal the red. Now Neil is again under fire. A couple of chains from Aurora. Put some nice damage against Neil, but Aurora's going to be rooted back instantly. It sets up for Cuvo, who's on the Cosmos looking for a dunk down. The fire makes sure Naka doesn't go through. Aurora trying to pull his mini back in. He only managed to find Cuvo Fred, who didn't have those beads available. Neil uses the ultimate, but now he may be the one in danger as Paul rotates in with his own Ratatosker ultimate, and Cuvo inevitably falls to the backline because there was no backline peel for him.
Aurora definitely putting in the work there. Uses the Searing Flames to avoid the knockup from that through the Cosmos, and then the no escape for the CC immunity to negate the effects of the Acorn Blast. Don't think you can see more Premier support play coming out. Nika's gonna try to steal, and he's successful.
Does. Wow, Nika with the blood pool and then 1 little tick of the ultimate is all that it takes. Nika steals a major objective away from the Tartarus Titans, effectively nearly negating this lead that they had, but he may pay with his life. Aurora throws a few chains, but they don't want to dive too far into this tier 1 tower. Not really committed to try and killing this tanky Jormungand miracle immediately for it, but it's a ton of power for the mid laner, and that little combo of the Dark Omen plus the stun following can do quite a hefty bit, but just not paying enough respect to the damage Nika's able to provide. Now they're paying a little bit of respect towards Nika, but he's taking a little while to go down. Doesn't have his ultimate available, trying to buy as much time as possible. Bat out of hell is enough damage. Layers teaming up with Benji takes him down. Cubo dunks a little bit early and mistimes the bat out of hell. Layers is okay and healthy in the backline, and Aurora rotating means that Dardes and Neil cannot continue forward.
Aurora gonna get tossed up a bit there from the NATO out of Dardes, but
You see the Blackthorn Hammer finished up well earlier from Layers, now going in towards his next item. Could be either a Pride one, or it could be that Erendite if he's looking for a little bit more of a power spike for himself. Aurora will rotate over and use the no escape to pull just Neil in to the middle of everybody, and Cyclone is dealing a ton of damage. Neil is in so much danger. That Sunder getting some nice damage, but Nika has rotated over and is looking to make a nice return fire. Up in the sky goes Cyclone to try and deal with the barrage that's coming from the solo laner, but Cubo Fred has rotated over, and with one knocked up and one to dunk down, Cubo puts Cyclone in the dirt.
Cyclone was not expecting to get another paid visit there from Nika, but Primal Fury could be the prize here for the Oni Warriors. They've got 5 members still standing tall here, and even without Cubo Freds through the Cosmos or Vote's Dark Portal, don't think they need them for the confirmation. Nika instead going to choose to try and hunt out Paul. Paul doesn't really seem to have much interest in that Primal Fury. He'd rather just spend his time farming it out. Hits level 20, no problem. And Primal will in fact be pulled by the Oni Warriors. The question is, can they keep it?
Layers and Aurora are here. Benji and Paul on rotation. Primal Fury is dropped in favor of Neil trying to dive Layers, but Chain comes out from Aurora. He'll find the second, looking for the third. He'll just throw it right against Neil. But Neil isn't deterred. He's still sitting very healthy for the Warriors. Meanwhile, the Titans are looking for an opportunity to dive into the midst of it. Nika submerged, looking for a target. He'll knock out just Aurora and will put a lot of damage in with the help of Dart as Neil gets a pluck against Layers. Aurora's in danger as he's trying to run away from Cuvo and from Dart as Nika now in the World Serpent looking to take down Aurora, but he just can't get the final hit. Aurora's still healthy, but Cuvo Fred isn't in the same boat as him as he falls down. Nika does manage to grab Aurora, but so far they've been losing the remainder of this fight as now Neil and Boat are at such critical health, and even Nika may fall to Paul.
It was so much expended just to try and chase down Aurora in the backside, and now Benji's going to blink forward. Dardes looking to be the target, avoids the knockup for the time being. Neilmo, though, could be an important asset if it wasn't for the fact that Cyclone is rejoined.
Yeah, he was a nice asset, and so is his health until it was no longer there. He uses the revive, which is good for now. Cyclone and Benji are here. Benji will tank up the tower so Cyclone can walk forward, but the rest of the team is here as Layers blinks in looking for Neil and for Dardes. Dardes has to use the Aegis, but Neil doesn't have that same benefit. Both of them will fall. The final tick of Vampire Bats is enough to take down the mid laner.
Might have actually been the Crusher that sealed his fate on that one. Don't think he was marked still by the Vampiric Bats, but Crusher is, I mean, that's the main reason why you go in on the camera. Gods like Izanami, Tiamat to really get away. And I don't hate it. Well, Kibo Fred might hate where he's at right now. He might hate the fact that he's lost that through the Cosmos. Tartarus Titans, on the other hand, loving this Fire Giant, seemingly open-ended for them to take.
Nika trying to sneak in with the Submerge, trying to find a way in, but he's going to get cut off instantly. Benji will stop him. Tartarus Titans get the Fire Giant, maybe looking for more. Nika is forced to use the World Serpent because he just took way too much damage walking forward. Uses all three just to retreat back to the base. Cuvo backing under the tower realizes that might not be the best position to be in. Tartarus Titans get the Fire Giant, and they get a few ultimates in tow.
But they lose both the ultimates that I think the Oni Warriors are dependent on in terms of their team fighting potential. Without that World Serpent or through the Cosmos, there's no one.
It works out nice for them, and so far it's been coming through pretty big. 5-1 for Layers, 5-0 for Paul, and looking for maybe an assassin-style play here. Nika and Dardes sitting in the back between the Phoenixes, waiting to see where the Titans are going to spread their damage towards.
Assassin-style play, could it be a better description, though, of what Paul tends to perform as in that mid lane position? He's been playing like he's the jungler for the Tartarus Titans this whole game, too, off that Morgan. It's been transformation steadily into either Ratatoskr or the Camazotz, and when you have such changeling options, it is difficult, I think, for the Oni Warriors to maneuver.
Benji blinks looking for Nika. Submerge comes through, so he's fine for the time being. Aurora takes a little bit of damage as they're looking towards this left side Phoenix, but Neil is proving to be enough of a defense with the help of Vote, and now Dardes rotating over.
More importantly, Tartarus Titans, they're grouped up. Layers still looking to threaten from inside the mid lane. A nice sentry, though, from the Oni Warriors, going to keep their base safe for the time being. So Layers, Paul, not going to be able to find that flank they were initially seeking out, and their power play potential off this Fire Giant steadily dwindling. That if Cubo is looking to try and punish this backline, he's going to have to try and shift his focus towards Paul. But again, Paul, he can just Ratatoskr himself. He can just Camazotz himself out of danger. And I think that this is where we really start to see the challenge come through for the Oni Warriors and how well they're going to be able to control this Tartarus Titans backline. Because so far, yes, we saw some moments, but I think for the most part, Tartarus Titans' punchback has been more severe.
Well, the ultimate from Aurora is only going to find Neil. He'll pull him into the midst, and that'll be an evaporated Kepri. No chance to use the Scarab's blessing for himself. He will be taken out instantly. Cuvo up on the Cosmos looking for a chance to dunk down, but Nika has to use the World Serpent just to try and get away from himself. Paul picks up a double kill. Dardes gets spotted by Benji, and now him and Layers are chasing down the mid laner, and Dardes has nowhere to go for himself as Paul picks up a triple kill, and it's only Nika and Cuvo left to try and defend against this team.
The Tartarus Titans could care less about this Fire Giant because that might just be the game ender that they needed. A well-executed team fight that seals the fate here for the Oni Warriors is they just continue charging into the base, take the right side Phoenix, and J-Mac, I think that we were so focused on the Fire Giant objective, completely forgot about what Paul could do in the backside.
And who cares how much damage that they could get with the Fire Giant. They're going to go for the potential way delayed Penta, but Paul won't be able to find the 5th kill for it. Titan falling just a little bit too low, and the defense from the Warriors will not be enough. Game 2 and the set will go the way of the Tartarus Titans.
Smite inside of the duo lane, and Nika makes that effort, but despite it, was not quite able to get involved in time. And I think a lot of it has to do with who you're seeing on the screen right now. We called it out in the P's and B's. That's an early Morrigan pick. Generally, you want to go for it a little bit later in the draft, but maybe we didn't take the Paul effect into account because he was getting involved heavily and early, be it by transformation or just walking in the vanilla stance. My man was making his stamp known on this game.
Yep, Rampage 22 minutes in for Paul. Always going to be difficult to fight back against. A 10 KDA for Paul here in game number 2. And that's why when we talk about Paul and we talk about this Titans team and how difficult it can be to ban against them, it's because it feels like Paul can effectively play everything. It's not often you see a team fight highlight reel where all of the kills from Morrigan are just in her plain old normal non-transformation stance, as you point out there, Miff, and Paul gets a triple kill to close out this game. A dangerous team when playing their best. In games like this, show you why. Paul goes 9-0-2 in this game. Not a whole lot for the Oni Warriors to hang their hat on. And so, unfortunately, I believe that confirms Oni Warriors for 6th seed going into Phase 2 playoffs. It confirms the Tartarus Titans for 5th seed then. A team that can really bring it against some of these top squads in the playoffs.
And it is worth noting, Sino's not completely out. If I'm not mistaken, he's in the coach role right now, so you're still getting that huge boon of a veteran player who's played at the world stage, who's played at the top tier, one of the world's MVPs, by the way, can still act and give you some information that you can action inside of these games, even if he isn't necessarily the one playing on field.
Right. And here's how your standings break down. After today, Camelot Kings and the Olympus Bolts tied up as far as wins go in the 1 and 2 spot. The Bolts will play tomorrow, and so that could shift things up. We'll have to wait and see how that one plays out, and here's your schedule for tomorrow. We will start off the Friday broadcast with the Solar Scarabs versus the Valhalla Valkyries, 2 teams that will not be going to the Phase 2 playoffs. Still looking to improve, though, in the Solar Scarabs with the new roster. The Valhalla Valkyries trying to build up some momentum. We'll start off the day on Friday. And then the big one, the Olympus Bolts versus the Atlantis Leviathans. Remember, not only seeding implications, if the Olympus Bolts win that one, a much easier route to secure themselves first seed. They play the Valkyries later on this weekend. But also in studio, we'll have the Olympus Bolts versus the Atlantis Leviathans tomorrow afternoon around 3 p.m., depending on how long that first set goes. Olympus Bolts versus Atlantis Leviathans will be in studio tomorrow.